What up? This is Myron, and you are listening to the Rye Bread and Mustard, a Mariners podcast, the down on the docks, on the other side of the tracks, dive bar style podcast, Evan, about the Seattle Mariners that you are listening to right here on the Odyssey app, or hey, wherever else you're getting that podcast action from. We're not worried about it as long as you're liking, subscribing, and being a good listener and a great community member to the Rye Bread and Mustard, a Mariners podcast. As long as you're doing that, and same thing on YouTube. We're down with that. Also, if you haven't said hello, hit us up on the socials, or if you got something strongly worded to say or pitch or a guest idea, hit us up at ryebreadandmustardpodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you like the gear, head on over to @simply.cora on Etsy or on IG. All right, that's all the house cleaning today. Fun episode. It is Friday. It's Felix Friday, or Happy Felix Friday Day. The Félix Hernández Mariners Hall of Fame weekend is about to go down. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we thought, hey, that would probably be a great time to talk about Félix Hernández and just kind of bullshit about him and his career and what he's meant and some memories we had of him. And of course, I'm here to do that with, and here's the big reveal, Hanno up in Edmond. What's up, Hanno?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. Happy Félix Day to you.
Yeah, I haven't heard that saying in a while. Every 5 days for many years, that was the case for the Seattle Mariners. Wow. It's sure going to be a great weekend to acknowledge his career and what he did for the Seattle Mariners and the community. It's going to be a great weekend to watch a hot Mariner baseball club and follow along and see Felix inducted into the Mariners Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so speaking of back to Happy Félix Day, what was that all about? Did everybody wear a Felix jersey? It was kind of like Blue Friday with the Seahawks.
I really don't know. I don't know if it went that far, but Felix was our one and only kind of hope for the starting pitcher there for many years, and everybody just said that to each other because they knew that was our best chance every fifth day when he took the hill, that we had a chance to win.
Yeah, so it was just more of a saying like Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah or Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm using all these real holidays, but yeah. Okay, how about Happy Hump Day? It's Hump Day. It's Friday. It's Casual Mondays. It was Happy Felix Day.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, there could be something more to it. I'm just not aware of it, but yeah, Happy Felix Day.
Felix Day.
Oh, you remembered.
Happy Felix Day, boys. Happy Felix Day. Happy Felix Day.
Happy Felix Day, buddy.
So listen, Félix Hernández, to me, is got to be one of, if not the best, Mariners tenured pitcher that we had. I know we had Randy Johnson there. We also had Jamie Moyer, and then probably we got a spot waiting to be on Mount Rushmore. Maybe these guys squeeze those guys out. I don't know, but as of right now, I would say like Felix has got to be up there in the top 2 or 3 starting pitchers to ever pitch for the Mariners, if not the best.
Yeah, no question. Comes up as a 19-year-old with a lot of fanfare. Yeah, he's definitely up there. I mean, thing when I think about Felix, besides all his accomplishments on the field, was just that he wanted to be in Seattle. He was one of us, a Seattleite. Even though my favorite player of all time, Ken Griffey Jr., got to remember he had one team on his list, and that was the Cincinnati Reds. Felix was never like that. He was all about Seattle, and he wasn't going to leave. And I got a big, big spot in my heart for him.
Yeah.
He wanted to be here. I mean, we go back in time when he signed his extension. He was emotional. He was raw. He was what all Seattle fans felt like when he explained why he wanted to be here. And we were sure happy, fortunate, and grateful to be able to watch him go out every fifth day and give his all like he did.
Kind of feels silly right there saying probably top 2 or top 3. It's probably number 1. I mean, yes, Randy Johnson is in a whole nother stratosphere, but we're just talking just during the Mariners. During the Mariners, you maybe have to put him in front of Randy Johnson, and then Jamie Moyer didn't have all these all-star selections and these Cy Young votes or Cy Young award. So I mean, Felix is definitely, whatever you think the greatest president is on the Mount Rushmore, that's who they are. But I would say there's only those three that I think are worthy of maybe throwing them up on there. And, maybe this next group, we looks like we have a few candidates that could be great Mariners pitchers. We'll just have to see how long their careers go. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Randy, he played for multiple teams. So did Jamie. Felix, played his whole career with the Mariners up until the end there, which was unfortunate. You always want your heroes and your favorite pitchers to stay with the organization, but that's baseball. It's also a business. So, I mean, I guess the way I look at it is I don't even consider Felix, playing with or being part of the Baltimore and Atlanta Brave organization. No. And as you mentioned, the Cy Youngs and the accolades, Randy Johnson had a lot of them, won some titles with other teams, got the Mariners on the map in '95. But Felix, he won some Cy Youngs. He didn't have the supporting cast that Randy had at times and the success team-wise. So it's a really hard conversation for me to have and kind of pinpoint, but I agree with you that Felix is definitely one or two, 1A, 1B, I guess, as far as Mariner pitchers.
Yeah. And then I think in number 3 is Jamie Moyer. I might take heat because people don't, he didn't throw fast, but he went out there and he did his job. And, he was a 20-game winner for your organization. You got to acknowledge that. Also was there probably at the right time, definitely fit into the system, where Felix is a pitcher, unfortunately, that pitched in the worst times for the Mariners as far as post that 2001 team.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned with Jamie Moyer, I mean, Felix will be going into the Hall of Fame, which Mariner Hall of Fame, which Jamie Moyer is a part of. So yeah, I mean, you're right. He's got to be in the conversation.
I mean, look, from 2009 to 2015, this guy again had an all-star selection, except for 1 year. And the year he won the Cy Young Award, he wasn't even on an all-star team. In that span right there that I just mentioned, that's the only year he wasn't an all-star. I think you'll trade that for an all-star snub. I'm sure he got snubbed. And, so you're talking 6 years of pretty much dominance, and you can almost throw, his back end of 2008 in there as well. So I think, from about 2008 till 2015, I mean, I used to play fantasy baseball. He would be one, if not the top pitcher to take. There's people came and gone, maybe as the top guy. Maybe it was Johan Santana, maybe it was Roy Halladay at one point, but Felix was always that guy that was right in there.
Yeah, I mean, when you talked about all-star games, what popped into my head right away was the fact that we had a Mariner starting an all-star game. I mean, that's just incredible to have that type of guy with that kind of stuff to start an all-star game on the biggest stage. And he's a Seattle Mariner. And when people thought of the Seattle Mariners, they thought of Félix Hernández, like you mentioned. Incredible stuff. Good fastball. Great off-speed pitches, including his wicked changeup. I mean, he just had the stuff, and the thing about him, he had that charisma on the mound. A lot of what you see now with Julio Rodriguez out on the field, he enjoyed the fans. He gave the fans that extra energy, and the fans fed off of it, and he appreciated the fans. He was such a joy to watch on the hill. Just an incredible talent. We were very fortunate to watch him pitch as much as we did. Like you said, I mean, there was a times when he went 7 innings multiple times, and just gave everything he had to this organization. He was a true Mariner, and I'm so excited that he's going into the Mariner Hall of Fame. It's well deserved.
I mean, Felix had 11 shutouts as a pitcher and complete games 25. Are
Unheard of
you going to see?
nowadays.
Yeah, you're not going to see George Kirby and Logan or Wu or Miller or anybody on the Mariners pitching staff right now, which might be the best pitching staff we've ever had. None of those guys are probably going to have 11 shutout complete game victories or 25 complete games, because it's just not the way the game is played right now.
No, not at all. And you talked earlier about, Hall of Fame, Randy Johnson. I mean, you have to think if Felix, he lost a lot of, wins and other accolades along the way. Maybe he could have been a Hall of Famer if things would have went the right way. But here nor there, he's a Mariner Hall of Famer. A lot of memories of him pitching. I know we'll talk about some of our favorites. But yeah, I just can't talk good enough about Félix Hernández.
Well, I'm going to make you talk even more good about him, because we're about to get into something that really there's nothing you can say bad about it. It's his perfect game. We're coming up on 11 years. I believe next week will be it's August 15th. Last year, they celebrated 10 years from that day. Do you remember that day? It was just kind of like what was it, like a Thursday or a Wednesday, just an afternoon game?
I do. Remember working and listening to the radio on the way home and, tuning in, and just could not believe what I was hearing. I mean, Tampa Bay was a pretty good squad that year as well, from what I remember. But not only just throwing a no-hitter, but a perfect game, and the way he expressed his gratitude and just joy after that final out, and the way he did it, striking the guy out. I mean, it couldn't have been written any better.
Yeah, I kind of had the same experience where I started to listen to it, but I didn't get into it later into the game because it was just one of those seasons where I wasn't hanging on to every game and I didn't have a podcast, but I was headed to the gym, of course, right? I was going in there to get my pump on. And an old friend of mine who's no longer with us, Tim Riley, great guy, former Nebraska Cornhusker football player, older gentleman. He had my phone number because he knew me from this place I bartended at the time. He called. Yeah. He texted me and he goes, hey, you better turn on the game. One of your Mariners is about to throw a no hitter. And I turned it on, and I was just like, I went into the gym, and I actually had a trainer at the time, like a personal trainer at the time that I was working out with. And I was like, I got to play this, while it was going on. He didn't like the idea of me doing that, but I did it anyways. But so that's how I saw this. And then it was crazy because in the gym they would have, even though this was down in Southern California, they'd have ESPN on or whatever. And this is like breaking news, so it was on the flat screens, but the radio was like my feed was like at times in front of it and then at times behind it. So I figured it all out. I don't know, doing a set of jump squats or something that I didn't want to do. When you go and you watch this clip back, the pose is probably the one thing that always etches into your mind, which came to be just a very famous pose. And I'm hoping we're going to get some kind of announcement someday that may be a statue around T-Mobile Park. You think about the other two people right now, okay? Edgar and Griffey.
And Dave.
All of them are in the Hall of Fame. We'll see. It might take a little bit of time, but I still think Felix, there might be a place for him in the Hall of Fame someday. It depends how they look at the game and the eras and stuff like that. We just talked about that run that he went on, and he had no run support. But the thing that just calls out to me as a statue, it could be just Mariner greats as well. I don't know what the bar for getting a statue is, but if you go by poses, this is a statue right here.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I didn't think about that aspect of being in the Hall of Fame. It's hard to say if that is some sort of criteria for the Mariners in doing that. But yeah, that deserves to be right along that row. there outside on the south end of T-Mobile Park. Yeah, that would be a great statue.
I mean, you got Dumper's home run, the clincher. You got, the double and the slide. And you got this. I know Randy Johnson threw a no-hitter. I know Randy Johnson helped us clinch the West, so maybe that one's up there when he came in at the end of the game, also in Game 5. All right, so there you go. There's your, 5 moments. Go ahead, Hanno.
No, I was going to say, maybe before they even do that, I mean, it would be nice to see the number 34 be retired possibly before that, up along with the other numbers that are retired. Just saying, I mean, that would, he certainly would deserve his number to be retired, in my opinion.
I do too. I haven't seen anybody with 34. Same thing. You don't really ever see 19. Is Jay Buhner's retired?
No.
It's just kind of not used. Obviously, Edgars is retired. Griffey's is retired. You know who else did? Who wore number 34? We had you had Freddie Garcia.
Yeah,
he wore 34, and I think that's why.
Because yeah, exactly. You're right.
Felix wore that but we also had a guest on our show upcoming here that also wore number 34. He was a second baseman.
No kidding. He wore that for the Mariners.
1992. We didn't get that in the discussion that will be airing next week. But yeah, if you go watch Brett Boone's very first home run, he's wearing number 34. Then the next year he wore 5, and then he switched to 29. But 34. So there's a little trivia question. If you want to be like, which one of these Mariners wore number 34? Félix Hernández, A, B, Freddie Garcia, C, Brett Boone, D, Butch Husky. Wrong answer would be Butch Husky.
Yeah, but in that order of that happened, Felix is the last one to wear that number.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Number 34 is the last number. There's actually a really good article if you want to go read one. It's a 10-year. It's on LWOS. It's last word on sports. I read a really nice article that they put together for last year. It's just kind of like breaking down how the day was and what was going on. So go check that out. Also, you can watch that clip on YouTube, and I'm sure you'll see it a million times this weekend. You know what's crazy is I always thought in my head that Dave Niehaus was part of this, but then it wasn't. This was post Dave Niehaus. This was Rick Riz, and then you had Dave Sims on the TV call, I believe.
Yes, but we can bring up another highlight that you're correct. We can bring up another highlight that in Felix's career that was very dramatic that Dave was a part of. It happened back at Old Shea Stadium. The bases were loaded. There was a young right-hander that had to bat facing Johan Santana, and he took him bridge off into right field for a grand salami.
Yeah. His fellow countrymen, and the guy that was kind of like the right-handed new Johan, because Johan was another one of those guys I loved in fantasy,
Great pitcher.
Great pitcher.
But yeah, Dave Niehaus definitely was a part of some iconic moments of Felix, no doubt. But he did, unfortunately, miss out on the perfect game.
But the grand slam call is the shit.
Oh, it was awesome.
He's 1 for 8. He got his base hit down in San Diego. And sends a drive to deep right center field. That baby is going to be fly away. Get out the rye bread and mustard grandma. The Mariners' first grand slam of the year comes from Félix Hernández. My, oh my, unbelievable. How about that? Jumped on the first pitch. That's got to be the thrill of a lifetime.
I hope you enjoyed that. I don't know if I think we could be okay with that. I mean, Odyssey's an MLB partner, so we'll let the lawyers and everybody else figure that out. But damn, that call with Dave, it gives you chills because you do. I always equate a lot of the calls that he made with the earlier teams, but no, Dave was this shit. You know, we wouldn't be doing this podcast if it wasn't for Dave.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. I mean, we grew up listening to him. That's what helped us grow our Mariner fandom, was listening to him on TV on KSTW or on the flagship radio station. So yeah, all those iconic moments, and we'll hear them, I'm sure, this weekend when they play them back, because the Mariners do a great job during their induction into their Mariner Hall of Fame. And that's what I really look forward to the most. I love watching those on Saturday when they bring all the guys back. They bring out Felix, you know, he gets to do his speech, his family's there. He gets his blue Mariner sport coat. I mean, it's a really cool thing. And yeah, to go back through all those highlights and hear the calls by our wonderful play-by-play announcers on radio and TV throughout the years. I mean, it brings back so many memories, and that's what makes being a Mariner baseball fan so great.
You know how you were talking, we all know about the perfect game. We talked about it perfectly, I think. And
I would agree.
There'll be, yeah, there's going to be a perfect. The Mariners have to top us this weekend. That's the bar. No, please, yes. God, if that's the bar, that, you know, no. One other quick thing about the perfect game. Do you remember the catcher? Here's a trivia question: who the catcher was that was catching them that day?
I do. And the reason I remember who caught Felix was because he bought this catcher a Rolex watch in appreciation for him catching and calling his perfect game. And that was John Jaso.
Yep, John Jaso. So that, I wonder if he's going to be here, you know, talking about it. Because listen, we're going to move on from it, but
that's a good poll, though. I think there's a good possibility. I'm giving it a 75% chance he is there.
Okay. All right. So is he gonna be there, or is he the kind of guy they're like, we're just gonna do a video package with you?
Well,
or I think the Mariners should fly him up and take him, roll out the red carpet and everything.
Well, you know how the Mariners do. They have the Hall of Fame sitting behind him and guys, and then off to the third base side, they have a group with, you know, friends and stuff and other former players. So I could see him being in that group. But yeah, if he can't make it or has other commitments, no doubt he'll be part of the video tribute, I would imagine.
Yeah. So yeah, there's the perfect game, obviously, but there is many games that, you know, Felix just etched his memory of just being just a Mariners warrior of a pitcher in my brain. And one of them is like, I think when he was on the map, or finally there on the map nationally where people know. And that was in April of it was in April of 2007, April 11th to be exact, 2007 at Boston. I remember this. It was on ESPN. I'm living down here. And so anytime there was like a national game, of course, I was all on it. And like the whole game wasn't even centered around the Mariners or Félix Hernández. The Mariners ended up having like a surprisingly good run in 2007, but they weren't looked at as any sort of type of contender. This whole game being on ESPN was about Dice K. This was a whole Dice K game, and the Mariners came out there, and Félix Hernández, you know, throws a complete game, one hitter against them. And this was like 3 days before his 21st birthday. So we couldn't even legally go out and have a drink after he did this.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That jogged my memory too. He had incredible games, it seems like, when the Mariners went back east and played the Red Sox, like you mentioned. He had that game, and I always feel like he always had a really good game when he went into Yankee Stadium and faced the Yankees too. He just had some extra juice that he wanted to prove and put himself on the map. He just had that it factor in him, and it brought the best out of him. And like you said, that game back in Boston, a one hitter. I mean, the Red Sox, a storied franchise.
Look at this lineup. Look at this lineup. This is like, look, obviously Big Papi, Manny Ramirez, Kevin Youkilis, JD Drew, the good, like when JD Drew was balling. You also had Dustin Pedroia. I mean, at one point he had 11 in a row, and it was a one hitter. He became the 6th pitcher in club history, the first in 19 years to throw a shutout at Fenway with that. So, I mean, he has a lot of these records that are, I think a little bit covered up by maybe just not having a strong end to his career. He kind of had like a career of like a really good running back, more years, but where you go from just being so dominant to kind of coming down off the cliff,
Yeah, kind of. I mean, the way I remember Felix's career is that towards the end, like you mentioned, they kind of, with every pitcher, they tail off a little bit, but it seems like from what I remember, they kind of wanted to change him a little bit, or he wasn't so wanting to adapt and use his skills as he got older, but I still was incredible. And more years than not, he was the Felix that we're going to remember this weekend as he goes into the Mariner Hall of Fame.
And also, if he goes in the Hall of Fame, does his alter ego go into his Hall of Fame? We're talking about Larry Benández. We actually talked a little bit about the Larry Benández with Jim Copacino. Here's a little refresher of that. How was it working with Felix? How did this Larry Benández thing happen? Was that something from him? Was that something from you guys that you pitched? How did that come about? Because that was a thing.
I got to give a shout out to my colleague and friend and now the co-owner and creative director of the agency, Mike Hayward, came up with that. And the idea was, Felix was a warrior. He wanted to pitch every day. So, obviously the construct was Felix disguises himself as this guy named Larry Benández so that he could pitch. And Felix embraced it, Again, that might have been one of those things on the line where you're making fun of a player, but he loved it. And, that was a big success. And that was a precursor to the King's Court, an idea Greg Green at the Mariners had. But I think it kind of, raised Felix's profile and got people rallying around him. And people would show up with the mutton chops, and with the long hair and everything. So that was pretty cool.
I mean, yeah, the whole Larry Benández thing, it was one of these things that at first I didn't get it. Then was explained in the commercials. It made so much sense that he just wanted the ball all the time. And that's why we love this guy. And he also had some other good commercials too. Do you remember the one where he had the ventriloquist?
Oh, yeah.
There was also one that wasn't done by them, but it was like more of like a national one where he's at the carnival throwing and getting he's at like a carny station, like getting like stuffed animals from throwing.
I mean, with the way Felix went out his business on the mound and then how he did those commercials, I mean, he was meant to do those types of commercials. They fit him perfectly, and he was all about it.
And again, the alter ego, I like it. Kind of doesn't draw like big comparisons or parallels to it, but like the Walter thing, it's just kind of more of like a meme or than it. I know it's a real persona, but isn't it kind of apropos that this week Logan Gilbert, goes out there and has this dominating game against San Diego and has a line that nothing's been that close since.
Very ironic. Yeah, no doubt. The King's Court, how that was brought up and created, and how he treated his court, and how they would start chanting with 2 strikes. It was just out of this world of the way he treated the fans and how he fed off them. I'll never forget that one iconic photo where he went into the King's Court and stood on the side rail as all the fans were behind him with his hands up, kind of like the Rocky Balboa pose. It's one of the memories that I'll never forget about Félix Hernández.
Yeah, it's a tearjerker. And I was so amped up last year when he was throwing out the first pitch of the playoff game and was in the house supporting, because listen, this is kind of like let's be honest, this is the organization the way it is now, and the coaches that had to go in a different direction from Felix. So it was good to see that there wasn't this big divide between, Scott and Jerry and And Felix, because if you remember, it wasn't such a glorious move. It wasn't so peaches and cream when he had to be moved to the bullpen in 2018, but that's what the team needed. I happened to be at the game when he was possibly going to make his first relief appearance, and he ended up doing it. It was in Oakland, but it was in the first inning during the first inning when James Paxton got nailed with the ball and had to leave the game. And look, there's the Warrior, Félix Hernández, going out there and just keeping the game nice and close. I think this very first batter hit a home run, and there was the guy on first base. And then after that, he just had this brilliant, gutsy performance down in Oakland. The Mariners, of course, ended up not scoring any runs in, and they lost the fucking game. Go figure. But how many games in his career that he didn't get the run support? And anytime it starts happening to somebody like Luis Castillo, for example, we're like, it's the ghost of Felix. This is the ghost of his career, of the lineups in his career, which is shitty and unfortunate. And you're right. When you said this at the beginning, when there was no other teams on his list, he had every chance and all the reasons in the world to go somewhere else.
Yeah. You're exactly right, but he chose to stay here, and there's not many Seattle athletes as prominent besides baseball that's as prominent and a superstar like Félix Hernández is that decided to stay in Seattle. What a guy.
It is, even as much as you could say that about Ichiro. At one point, he's like, yeah, it's fine. I'd rather go try to win a chip, like Felix they both played for the Mariners for a very long time. And are, their ships definitely cross paths. So out of the, Mariner Hall of Famers for the Mariners, in his era, I think his only teammate in this will be Ichiro. Oh, actually Griffey. I forgot Griffey did come back. So he did play with Griffey, and he did play with Ichiro, but now, he's kind of that, he's definitely the youngest without a doubt in the Mariners Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I didn't think about it that way. You're exactly right. And I just want to comment on that just a moment ago, you mentioned about that playoff game with Felix coming out from right center field, walking out with the ball and throwing that pitch. What a treat for you to be at the playoff game and then to have that happen. I was sitting at home and I could feel the adrenaline coming through my body as I watched that happen. What a glorious moment that was.
It was, but listen, it felt glorious to me, but I was literally in the line going through security when it happened. And then I saw the clip on the board when I got up to the top of the escalator, and it still moved me. And and then later in the game, there was many innings where they had to figure something out in between the innings. And one of the times was one time it was like Macklemore. One time it was, I don't know, Bill Nye the Science Guy or Joel McKay. I don't know, somebody like that. And then when Felix came out and it was just like the raising of the 12th flag, the place was amped, and you're like, I remember looking at the Ninja and going, it's happening now, We're
going to win this game, huh?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. And
Hank Aaron, George Brett, Nolan Ryan, Dick Clark, Elton John, James Dean, Woody Allen, Mac Damon, Rick Barry, Michael Douglas, Billy Martin.
Okay, I get it. There's a lot of guys with two first names.
But Félix Hernández, super happy. I know there's a lot more to cover on him, but we just wanted to have just a quick little, impromptu conversation. We were going to put it at the end of yesterday's episode, and I was like, I don't want to just rush through Felix. Neither did you, Hannah.
No, I'm glad we talked about it. Me personally, I never got a chance to sit in the King's Court. How about you?
I have not. It came off as more of like a football or college crowd than your typical major league crowd.
Yeah, I mean, they tried to replicate it with the Maple Grove, which was nowhere near what the King's Court was. They have now the no-fly zone, which is, making its way towards it, but it still doesn't have the juice of the King's Court.
No, I mean, look, you could have 5 or 6 2-strike counts in an inning, because that's kind of was a little bit, some people go, it was a little bit of a distraction for him. Like he would get juiced up on
Yes.
that strike 2 and try to get that punch out. But I mean, that's how much he was connected to the crowds. But yeah, the fly zone is, on and popping, but that's going to be, case by case, very like circumstantial of how the game goes. Julio has a great day at the plate, it's going to be the place to be. If the ball's hit out to center field quite a bit and he's making plays like he did the other night with 3 amazing plays, robbing home runs with the theatrics, it's the place to be. But let's say the ball's getting hit the other way, he gets walked, maybe it strikes out a couple of times. It could be a not so fun place. At least the Felix, whether it was a great game, which most of the time it was, or it was going south, you at least had, I would assume, something to get up and you'd have a cue,
Oh yeah.
sitting out in the no fly zone could be like you're an actor sitting in catering waiting to get used. I don't know. So I mean, it is what it is. 2 different things.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, I think we'll talk some more about Felix. Definitely, we'll be talking about how the weekend went. Sure, it's going to be great. But it's kind of also crazy. Baltimore was the last team that he ever put a uniform on, didn't throw a pitch in the season, but that was the last uniform he had on was the Baltimore Orioles. They're here in town. Maybe the first pitch is him hitting one of the Orioles. I don't know. But
and their social media network claims that their all-star closer is the new King Félix too. So there's a little bit of that backstory as well. So like our King Félix's Twitter handle, he's the real King Félix.
Oh my God. I'm glad you didn't let that hide away from here, because I get it. That is a badass dude, but come on, to use this guy, to use this guy's nickname or take on this guy's nickname, or for another organization to take on their nickname, is stupid. It's dumb. I get it. There's always going to be the kid. I mean, Griffey wasn't the first kid. Gary Carter was the kid. I think Ted Williams might have been the kid. I don't know. Somebody's the kid at any point. Big Papi. Yeah, that's a, you don't touch that one. King Félix. I don't know. This guy's too short in the tooth in his career to be getting a name like that. But I also am like, that's Baltimore doing that. I mean, these guys are idiots. Look what they did with the broadcaster that said that they suck against Tampa Bay. He got fired. He got fired for telling the truth. And even though that their organization gave them a stat packet, or gave them all the graphics and the whole setup of the show, but that's a whole nother podcast. But look, that's a good team. We're gonna if Felix weekend goes the way it's gonna go, as we know, and the Mariners could have a really good weekend. This is going to be a weekend to remember. So I'd say get on down to the ballpark. I wish I could be there.
Yeah, Saturday for the induction, I believe, is sold out, but tickets available Friday and Sunday. So check out your favorite friends here at Rye Bread and Mustard for their tickets on StubHub, or get your tickets at the Mariners Ticket box office.
Yeah, get them wherever you get in. Get them where you fit in. You know what I mean? Anyway, if you're down at the game and you got some good footage and you're posted on your social medias, don't be afraid to tag us so we can see it. We'll put it on our thread. Anyways, this is the Félix Hernández roundtable coffee discussion. We're going to get out of here. We'll see you we'll be all up in their earbuds on Monday morning. Hanno, you know what time it is. Charge.
Long live the king.